Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Katie. Today is episode 3 of my DIY series, Can I Hack It?, where I challenge myself to Ikea hack decor from popular stores. So in the past, I've done Urban Outfitters and Anthropologie, and today I'm tackling West Elm, one of my favorite stores, which I thought would be such a good candidate for this series because sometimes it's hard for me to justify purchasing things on West Elm because they always seem a little bit pricey, especially for trendy items that I'm only going to have around for a season or two, and I know you guys can relate to that. You've told me that in the past. As always, I'll get started by doing a little Ikea haul, which I only have a handful of items this time, so it'll be quick, but I like to show you each item, put the name up, and then show you how much it costs so you know that before getting started, and then we will hop right into the projects. Alright, so the first item I have is the Ringsta lampshade. So I actually used 2 of these in my last video, the bigger sizes, but I wanted to show you guys how they actually arrive. So you actually have to kind of snap them together, but they come in this flat box, which is super interesting for a lampshade. Really easy to put together. This is the smallest size and it was $6.99. I also picked up this 6-pack of these little plastic tumbler cups, and this whole pack was only $1.99. So I'm only gonna use 1 or 2 of them for the project, but I think they're really cute, so they'll just be nice to have around the house. And you might recognize these bowls from the Urban Outfitters episode. This is the smaller version, but these are 79 cents a piece, and I got 2 of them. The first thing that caught my eye from West Elm was this gorgeous pleated lamp that runs anywhere from $100 to $400. It comes in 2 styles, as a regular side table or desk lamp, or as a hanging lamp, and you guys know I'm a sucker for a good hanging lamp, so this is what I decided to take on. So like I mentioned, this is the Ringsta lampshade in the smallest size, and I wanted to quickly show you how to put it together. All you have to do is snap these metal rings into place on both ends of the shade, and then you've got a nice sturdy lampshade in seconds. To accomplish the pleated look, I immediately thought of these foam dowels, which I used a different version of in my Anthropologie video. This is the 30mm dowel, and I will link them down below for you guys. So I took them outside and started to paint them. This part is of course all up to you. The original lamp is white, but I always like a little bit of color, particularly pink tones at the moment, so that's what I went with. I gave them each a couple of coats of this matte blush pink chalk paint, then left them to dry. The next step was to cut them to size, so I lined the dowel up with the lampshade. Then I drew a line across the foam with a pencil. Next, I simply cut across that line using my scissors, and it was a little bit tougher since they were painted and the paint took away some of the softness of the foam, but the scissors still worked just fine. I repeated this step over and over until I had 20 foam pieces in total. You can see that one side of the foam is still white, and this is the side that will be laying flat against the shade, so that's totally fine. But the ends are also white, so those needed to be painted outside again once they were cut. Once that was complete and dried, I started to attach each piece to the lampshade using hot glue. I just covered the entire white side of the foam and pressed it, making sure that it was straight up and down and not leaning to either side. This process reminded me of a planter that Erica from Peony and Honey made a while back. She used this same technique to make a really cool planter, so I was definitely inspired by her for this project. As this started to come together, I was getting really excited to see how it was looking. It really looks like a cool statement art piece, but the fact that it functions as a lamp makes it that much better. For the last piece, I had to cut it down a little bit to make it fit, but you can hardly tell once it's glued down. I did want to mention that I tested this to see how much light would make it through, and it's surprisingly a lot, because not only does it shine from the bottom and the top, but it also peeks through the small gaps between each piece of foam and gives a really cool effect. So now all that's left to do is hang it up and enjoy. The next piece that I wanted to try to recreate was one of these ceramic vases from West Elm that sell for $50 to $150. I really liked the unique shape of them and I immediately had some ideas of how I could pull this one off. So I started with my 2 Ikea bowls, stacking one on top of the other. To secure them in place, I decided to use some E6000 glue for a nice strong hold. I lined the entire rim of one of the bowls with glue, then pushed them together. Next, I grabbed one of the tumblers and applied a generous amount of glue to the bottom of it. I centered it on top of the bowls and pushed it in place, holding it down. Once that had partially dried, I flipped the whole thing over and added a second tumbler to the other side, following the same exact process as the first. This all needs to be one uniform color, so I took it outside and gave it a few coats of matte white spray paint. I noticed that there were still some slightly visible gaps where the 2 bowls connected, so I applied a small amount of joint compound using just my fingers to smooth it out. I went around the entire edge of the bowls to make sure that it was as uniform as possible, and this worked really well and ended up looking great. There were some small rough patches both from the excess glue and the joint compound, so once it was dry, I took some sandpaper and lightly sanded it down. Remember to always wear a mask and have proper ventilation whenever you're sanding something like this. So here's where things got interesting. To start, I mixed a small amount of brown and white acrylic paint together and applied it in short brush strokes at all different angles. This is where I kept telling myself to trust the process because it was looking pretty crazy at this point, but I knew I had a plan in mind. In hindsight, I wish that I did this step with a sponge or sponge brush rather than this paintbrush, so if I repeated this project, that is one thing that I would change. Next, I used the same technique that I shared in last week's video, where I added sand to acrylic paint, and I'm using a beige tone of paint and mixed in enough sand to make it slightly gritty. This time I did use a sponge brush, which made a big difference in getting the right texture. I dabbed the sand paint all over the vase, and keep in mind that the more layers of paint that you add, the thicker it will be, giving you even more texture. You can play around with this and see what you prefer. The sand will flake off if you touch this while it's still wet, but once it's dry, it is very much a part of the vase and will not flake off, which is a bonus. So now I can add in my greenery and this dupe is complete. You guys know what to do. Let me know in the comments down below which one of these projects was your favorite. I always like to see if there's like a clear winner in the bunch. Also, make sure you guys are following me over on Instagram. I share little sneak peeks all the time of my upcoming videos as well as unique DIYs, and I love to see when you guys tag me in your DIYs, so it's super fun. So head over there and follow me if you want to. And also, I forgot to say thank you guys so much for 50,000 subscribers here on YouTube. That is absolutely amazing. I appreciate you so much. So if you are not already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little notification bell so that you get notified as soon as I upload a new video. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you soon.